It's Hollie's Hotspurs back with another one. Chatting all things Tottenham, we're second to none. Special guests every time, if it's win, lose or draw. The passion is high like Harry Kane when he scores. Or when Lloris makes a world-class save. We got Hollie running the mid every game. Settle down, stick around, share your thoughts with the panel. And make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Coys.
Hello and welcome to another Hollie's Hotspurs live. It's been a little while since I've done one because obviously Connor did an excellent job the other week when I was on holiday of doing so, but I'm back to host the therapy session as I've now called it. But with me tonight to dissect everything, I am joined by two fabulous guests. First of all, welcome back, Emma. Emma, how have you been, my friend? And I'm sorry we've got to discuss another loss.
Yeah, all good. It's good to be back. It's been a while. I wish it was under better circumstances, but as always, lots to discuss. So looking forward to it.
100%. I mean, at least Spurs are consistent, I guess, with bad things at the moment. And also joining once again is George. George, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, very good. Happy to be back and discuss all the things that are going on at Spurs because there's a lot to dissect.
There is indeed. Welcome to everybody else that's joining in as well. Like I say, we've got a lot to discuss, so it'd be good to get all your comments in. But let's kick this off. Obviously, before the game, how were you kind of feeling, Emma? Because obviously Villa had a lot riding in this game to obviously leapfrog us, and the fact that obviously they weren't in great form coming into it. But like all things, Dr. Tottenham bowed its head once again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very difficult at the moment because I like to try and keep low expectations so that I can't be too disappointed. So I kind of thought, final push for the last few games of the season. I thought we'd, come out and actually have that intensity that we all want. So I can't say I was feeling confident, but I was hoping, for better than we got.
I think that's probably the thing that we were all kind of hoping for, was to actually come out with some fight. I mean, George, were you kind of on the same wavelength with Emma and all of us that surely something had to give this game, but clearly it wasn't the case?
Yeah, I kind of had a lot of blind hope going into it because especially I went to the game as well. And I feel like a lot of the times if I'm going to the game, you tend to be a lot more optimistic than you should be. Just because, you're hoping that you see something good happen. And to be honest with you, I was looking at their form, like you said, and I was thinking, come on, surely, like Ollie Watkins not firing. We've got a good chance here. And yeah, sadly, just didn't feel like we turned up. And that's sort of same old story at the moment. So yeah, it was not anywhere near as good as I was hoping for. Can't lie.
No, and that's the thing, like I said, going into it, I mean, we say sometimes form shouldn't take into it, but I was hopeful in terms because of the way Villa were playing, but obviously it wasn't the case. I think the only can I say it's a positive, but Emma, the thing was, Dyer was nowhere to be seen in the team sheet. And for many people, including myself, that was quite a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a positive you can take. I think as well with all the injuries and stuff and the that we've had, I think it's sometimes been difficult to sort of know who's going to be where, but yeah, I mean, he's not been there for a couple of games now and I can't say he's been missed.
No, that's probably the easiest thing to say. And George, obviously there was lots of rumours prior him missing these couple of games that he was going to get a new contract. Now, are you hopeful that ship has now sailed, that he's not, are we reading too much into it, the fact that he's not in these games?
I mean, supposedly he was injured or whatever for the most recent one in training, which I don't know whether you want to believe that or not, to be honest. I thought the talk of new contracts, I thought was a joke. Like, I feel like we're the only club that sort of accept mediocrity, especially when it comes to these sort of things. Like, we're just willing to accept that because they've been a long servant for the club for ages and they've I don't know, given for the badge that they just deserve a new contract. Whereas it's just, you've got to refresh the team, you've got to refresh the squad quite often. I think especially you always need to bring a couple of players in every year. And then I think I remember Sir Alex, a quote from years back, him saying that your whole squad should basically look completely different every 5 years, for every 4 to 5 years. And the fact that we're sort of offering mediocre players contracts after like 8 to 10 years at the club just sort of shows sort of where we're at the top, really. So I'm hoping that that's, the last of that.
I think as well, like we've got we seem to have a thing of like, there's players that, they're club players, are team players, but it's almost like for us to like start getting to the next level where we want to be, that's when you need to move these players out and actually get the players in that are going to take us higher in the league and winning trophies. And I think there's a lot of, like Dyer as an example, there's a lot of those players that, as George said, are at that mediocre level, and we're not going to be able to carry on like going up if those players stick around.
Yeah, and if we wanted to reward loyalty and stuff, you might as well pick players from the fans or something. Go to the crowd and stuff. So, all right, we can play centre back. All right, you're in the team this week. Like, as much as obviously, like, it is a good trait to have in a player. It can't be the only thing. We have to progress in terms of ability, and unfortunately, I'm just not seeing that with a few of the players in the squad at the moment. So, yeah, definitely big changes needed.
And I think that's the kind of the vibe, like you kind of said. If you've got mediocrity, you're never going to excel that if you keep giving those players those chances, because we'll never develop. Obviously, talking about the game kicks off, Emma, and there is so much space. I am doing my nut to see that nobody's really closing down the Villa players, and that was kind of the kind of drama of the whole kind of match, and well, it's the theme of every game at the moment, that we give players so much space. I don't know why they bother doing it.
Yeah, I know, and I kind of felt like, especially against Villa, it was almost like it was 11 players, it wasn't a team. And I just feel like it was a lot of like being reactive rather than proactive, and giving players a lot of space. And I mean, it's stuff that we've seen a lot recently, but I just think you just, I feel like that it's also like the simple stuff in football, like the passing and the closing down, and it's like it's just not there. And I think there were quite a lot of moments when you'd see, like, we'd get the ball and a Villa player would close down and the next one would be ready to close down, predicting where it was going to go. And I just think it was just all a bit all over the place and didn't seem like it had that sort of, right, we know what we're doing, this is the game plan, we're here to fight to get a result. It just didn't feel like that.
It was all in bits and pieces, like you kind of said. It was like, we didn't have a game plan, because I'm sure Mason's got hopefully something in his head. But the stats I saw at half time, George, was the fact that when it showed the heat map of our players attacking and defending, there was literally the same picture. It literally looked like we were in the same area of the pitch the whole game, and it just can't be on.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, you got to give credit to Villa as well. I think Emery's done an amazing job tactically, the club, because realistically, it's the exact same players he's had when there was Gerrard managing there not too long ago. And I think what he did well is that he played the high line with their defence, and which obviously caused Son and an abundance of other players to be offside more than they've scored this season. So I think, like, from that standpoint, he's done amazing tactically. And again, they seem to stretch us quite a bit, like you guys were saying, like, especially when we were playing 4 at the back, it seemed most of the time. Obviously others were helping in, but it just felt like they were able to spread us quite a bit, get down towards the byline, cut in, and having shots for days. And to be honest with you, with the amount of chances they had, they could have easily got a few more goals. So credit to them, but then also it's just, I don't see what then our plan is. Like you said, I don't see the same sort of press from our side, which, to be fair, we did see in a couple of recent games under Mason, but it almost like it felt like Mason hit the jackpot in the game against Palace, being like, oh yeah, this sort of for the back playing Emerson and Porro's worked really well, let's just go and do that again. Not really taking into fact what Villa's tactics might be or how they play, especially when you're playing away from home. I think again that's sort of where it shows there's a little bit naivety in his sort of on his side as a manager. And it just wasn't really working for most of the game, and nothing really changed until he actually brought on Basuma and Kulusevski, and I thought they were bright sparks, and we had a decent 15 minutes in that when they came on, but again, unfortunately, we didn't capitalize and they ended up just scoring at the other end. So yeah, I just don't think the team's just there tactically. It doesn't feel like they know really what they're doing. Like, are they all pressing together? Are a couple of players running at the defense? Are we just sitting back? It just seems a little bit messy to me, to be honest.
I think as well it is difficult, and again, I know this is kind of down to injury, but like Højbjerg and Skip in the middle, I just feel like they're far too similar, and
Agreed.
And that's why we lack this creativity. Like, we get the ball and it's almost just like no one knows what to do because we don't have that creativity going forward. And as George said, I mean, God, the amount of times I got caught offside, which again, is credit to Villa. The line was perfect, but I think that's also, and again, but you can't use injuries as an excuse. Every team has injuries, but I do think and I mean, creativity has been an issue for years, but having, I think in particular, and I think that's why as well, like bringing a player on like Basuma, and we sort of saw it sort of brightened up a bit, is because you have Højbjerg and Skip who are just too similar.
100%. And I think Højbjerg's been getting pelters left, right and centre. And to be fair, I think it is warranted to an extent, because there was parts yesterday where, George, you just looked like an absolute passenger. You just watched the whole game. And I think that's kind of what Emma said, in the sense that Skip and Højbjerg are literally the same player.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I've been seeing it more and more recently with Højbjerg. Pretty much since Bentancur's been injured, you sort of noticed that more in the games. Because, look, I used to love Højbjerg, and I think because when we signed him, we sort of, and it was of what the Mourinho sort of time, we needed leadership in the team. We didn't really have that, and it really did seem like he would battle for everything in midfield at that time. But sort of, as time's gone on with him in the side, he does almost become a passenger in a lot of games. Granted, he has a couple of good ones, but a lot of the times, more so recently, you just sort of see him standing around. He's pointing at other players to move. And I heard someone sum it up perfectly, where I think it might have even been on Talk Sport, which surprisingly actually made some sense there. But one of the callers was like, when the ball is unavailable, Højbjerg shouts about calling for it. But when it is available, he goes hiding. And you don't see him come collect the ball. Whereas what I loved about Basuma when he came on is almost every instance he was going towards the player, one of our players that had the ball, and was asking for it, collecting it to then progress it forward. And then obviously, as you guys have said, like Skip and Højbjerg, because they're so similar, you're not getting one that's like fully sitting deep, defending, breaking, bringing the ball forward, progressing the ball forward. They both just sort of seem to stand in the middle, holding their positions and just hoping that they can win the tackle. So, I think without Bentancur in the side, it's sort of shown a lot of our weaknesses in midfield.
Definitely. I mean, there was a video today of Bentancur doing some kicky ups, which did make me smile. But it's still a long way for him to come back. But obviously, we'll go back to the game. And Emma, the first goal is kind of predictable, like we've all kind of said this evening, that there was passages of play that were so predictable. And as soon as that ball came into the box, you knew Villa were putting it in the back of the net.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, it was just a bit all over the place. And I think Romero as well, I think it's, I thought he played very well against Palace. And then you just have those moments of recklessness and putting in the fouls that you just don't need to do. And I think, I just think we all knew the goal was coming once it got in the box. But I just think it's just having that. It's that it's proactivity rather than reactivity that is just not there. And, you don't have those moments. You don't have 5 minutes to think about what you're doing. It's in the back of the net. So I think it was unfortunately a bit predictable from Tottenham.
100%. And it was just kind of the theme of the whole game, because obviously as well, George, we concede a free kick. And I don't know whether Fraser Forster could have done anything more. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but to me, he did kind of seem too far over on one side. But given that, what was your kind of take on obviously the free kick? Again, it was another silly foul that we gave away.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Forster probably should do a bit more there, because it's not like the ball's gone top bins and it wasn't an unstoppable free kick. And to be honest with you, it wasn't even the hardest either. Like you said, he just seemed to be a little bit too far over. And it's the fact that he managed to get pretty much a whole palm on the ball and sort of guides it into the top corner is what makes it worse, because then you start thinking, well, surely if you've got that far and managed to get your hand on it, then you're able to get it out. But yeah, I mean, it felt like he was going to score the moment in the position it was. Just had that aura about it, and it's just the way things have been. I love that clip of Basuma where he's like being the draft exclude underneath the wall, and he's like seeing it go top bins, and he just goes, "Oh!" Probably every Spurs fan in that moment. But yeah, just everything. Like I said, I agree. Everything just seems way too predictable from us at the moment.
And the thing is, the argument that I haven't actually seen it, to be fair, but obviously lots of people probably be thinking, what if Lloris was in the goal? But Emma, as we know, Lloris is injured currently, and we probably have seen the last time we've ever seen Lloris in a Spurs shirt. I mean, that being said, is it a bad thing that he'll be off in the summer, do you think? Because there are rumours that he is leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I love Lloris. He's been at the club for so long. And I almost do think it's a shame, because I feel like it's not been, assuming this is the end, it's not been the greatest. There's been quite a few mess ups this season, and then he sort of just has, whether he's injured or not, who knows, but he's kind of just gone. But I do also think there comes a point, again, it's a player like him, it comes to a point where he's done so well for the club, well respected, been such a good player, saved us in a lot of moments, but it comes to a point where it's like, every player has their end at a club, and so I mean, it would have been nice if he kind of saw out the season and had some great games the last few games of the season, but I don't think it's a bad time if this is the end, and I think it's now the chance to, again, in the goalkeeper position, get the fresh players in and get a new goalkeeper that can last for years to come. So I think it would be sad, but I don't think it's a bad thing, and I don't think it's almost like he's almost run his course now, I think.
Definitely. And it's all about those things that we all talk about. It's players last too long at this club. And I think that's just the running theme. But George, are you kind of on the same page as Emma and me, as like, if it's Lloris's time to go, maybe it's a little bit too late, that we won't recruit enough funds as we probably could have done, but are you too unhappy about it?
Look, to be honest, I think it's one of them ones where I think it comes from the top. There wasn't enough planning, whether that is Levy, whether that is Paratici at the time, or whoever it may be that was in charge in the moment and the planning of our squad. Look, at the end of the day, he's been for the club a long time, and he's had some amazing periods, but it really just doesn't feel like that those at the top have actually planned for his success, like his successor. And especially when he was offered the new contract as well, I think the extra 2 years it was last year. Lloris himself was saying that, I want to be here to help find the next person, to bring in the next person. I feel like, to be honest, if that's the case, that person should have already been in the back of their minds and should have been brought in. And for me, it's just planning little too late. And now we've seen Lloris regressed really quickly this season, whereas I felt like maybe the last couple of years he actually wasn't anywhere near as bad as people were making out. But unfortunately, again, like you said, we've just left it way too late, and we're sort of now scrambling for a top goalkeeper that we're going to need in the summer, and him to be out on his way, along with the others like your centre backs and your attacking mids and whatever we might need. So I think it's just lack of planning has sort of led us into the situation.
I think that's probably at the nail on the head. We kind of see that all across the park. Because obviously today, rumours have come out that we want to go and sign Kulusevski on a permanent deal. Now, Emma, obviously they're looking to see if they can barter down the price tag, supposedly. If that is the case, is that a good thing to have Decky on a permanent loan, permanent deal? Sorry, or do you think, again, it's a rash decision because we're kind of all rushing and obviously stressing about the new season coming thick and fast?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because I think at the start he came straight in, impressed straight away, was doing so well, and I do feel like the last, obviously I know he didn't start against Villa, but the last few games, again, I thought when him and Basuma came on, we did look a bit brighter, but overall, I've not been quite as impressed as I was at the start. But again, is that because of this managerial change and everything is just a bit chaotic at the moment? And once we get a manager in who, will he actually kind of find his feet again? I think it's difficult because we might not keep him and then get someone else in and wish we'd kept him, or we keep him and he doesn't do as well. Overall, though, I think I'd like to see him stay permanently, because I think he has already shown what he can do, and I do think that maybe with the right manager, I mean, who knows who that'll be, but with the right manager, he'll sort of find his feet, because I think because he's shown what he can do and how good he can be, it's not like he's come in and just been a bit meh. So I think I'd like to see him stay permanently.
And I know that we've spoken obviously about injuries, that we shouldn't use that as an excuse, but he did have an injury this season. That's probably has knocked his confidence. But like we've all kind of said, and coming to you, George, the fact that when he did come on, it was only a split decision making, I think, yesterday that obviously brought him down a little bit.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think it'd be a no-brainer if we didn't sign him. For 35 million for a player of his quality nowadays it's going to be almost impossible to find. And I think the injury was hampering him a lot, and I think Mason as well also came out saying that since then they've almost been like nursing his injury a little bit and trying to be a little bit more careful. And you could probably see that in himself. He doesn't seem anywhere near as I guess explosive going forward. Like obviously before his injury at the end of last season and the start of this season, you'd see him easily trying to take everyone on, carry the ball forward, getting around the box, get on the edge of the area, try and shoot. And you'd see that a lot less at the moment. And I do worry if that's him just in the back of his mind being like, oh God, I don't want another long-term injury. You don't want to end up in like a Bentancur situation where you could have a season, like a career-ending injury. So I'm hopeful that it's just a case of needs a rest in the summer, pre-season, and he'll be back to his best again. But I think we're not really going to find another right winger of his caliber for the same price anyway. If we miss out on him, you're effectively going to have to go out there and spend 70 million at least to get like a top quality first choice right winger at the club.
And especially with all our other problems at the moment, I think it's probably the safest bet just to keep Decky.
Exactly.
But obviously there was a little bit of a lifeline, Emma, because Harry Kane, the man himself, once again manages to obviously secure us a penalty. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When I watched it live on the watch along, I was a bit like, is that a penalty? But obviously when you rewatch it, you kind of see if it is. So Harry Kane, once again, was saving the day.
Yes, no, definitely. Yeah, I thought that as well. I was like, it's hard to, I think those ones are hard to tell, especially different angles as well. But I think it was a penalty. And I mean, again, maybe a slight positive we can take that he put another penalty away. But yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet really, because yeah, he put it away. Yes, it's another Harry Kane goal, but you know, all we really want is 3 points, and that's not what we got.
No, very far from it. And again, we left it too late because there wasn't really a lot we could do that because everybody was offside every 5 seconds. But obviously saying that, obviously there's lots to talk about Harry Kane at the moment, George, and that is whether he is going to stay. Is he going to go? Is Levy going to like coax him to stay with a massive statue of him outside the lane? I don't know. But what's your kind of like take on it from this point on?
Look, for me, I think realistically, and I've said this pretty much like every stream I've been on, I think he's only got 2 options. I think he stays at the club and potentially sees out his contract for the rest of next year, or Man United going for him. I've trying to like analyze every possibility, every club, and while yes, he obviously has the options of the likes of Real Madrid and Bayern Munich if they do decide to go for him, and yes, he has a high chance of maybe winning a Champions League with them. I just think, I think people really do underestimate that he is like a Chinkford boy through and through. And he's got his 4th kid on the way. I don't think he'd want to move his family abroad. I think he wants to break the Premier League record regardless. And I think in the Premier League, really at the moment, there's only Man United that need a striker and have the money that they'd be willing to offer that Levy wants. So, and look, if they get Champions League football and obviously we don't, then I think that's going to be a bit more of a plus for him going there. Obviously, they've already won the League Cup and potentially got an FA Cup on the way this season. No guarantees they'll get it next year, but I just think that's the only other option for him. Otherwise, yeah, just sees out his contract and looks for options potentially next year if things don't change at the club.
And I think, like you said, I think I'm leaning more to the thing that he'll stay. Not saying that he would leave, but for me, it seems that he wants to try and sort out this thing at Spurs at the moment. I mean, Emma, what's your kind of thoughts on the whole? Is Harry Kane staying or is he going?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's going to stay and see out his contract. I also think, from a Levy perspective, can he really afford, not in money terms, but afford to let him go? You know, and I think it's difficult because also a player like Harry Kane, that everyone knows his quality, and it is difficult. We don't know what manager's going to come in, and I mean, whoever comes in, who knows what they're going to do. So, you know, yeah, it's almost like he could stay and see out his contract, and also potentially have, you know, once his contract's up, there's not that control over sort of how much he goes for and things. So I think, but then it's also he's not getting any younger, and of course it's Harry Kane. He's got years still, but I also think it's sort of like I think it's a very difficult one because you stay. You see what manager comes in, you see what can improve, but then it's also like, are you just delaying the inevitable and you know, delaying your chance of potentially going somewhere and winning trophies?
Because that's literally the only thing that he hasn't achieved, and I think none of us would. I mean, we don't want to see him go, but if he did, we'd all be like, go on, fair play, go win something. Because I don't think right now is probably the place to be. Because obviously, George, again, we're in the manager circus. I think someone tweeted the other day, they're doing a thing every day that we're, what's the word, drama free. I think it took 11 days before something else hit the fan. So with that, George, we'll get on to the guy that might potentially going down the road, but your kind of first thoughts, because obviously Nagelsmann came out the other day that he hasn't been approached by Spurs. I'm not sure if I actually believe that or not.
Yeah, I can't lie. I'm depressed about that whole situation because for me, like Nagelsmann's always been like my number one choice, mainly because it does just feel like he ticks all the boxes that we're looking for. He's a young manager that obviously we need a sort of project at the moment. But it's not just the fact that he's young. Like he's bossed it pretty much everywhere he's been so far, given at his age. Like he's taken Hoffenheim from almost relegation to Champions League football in like 2 years. Obviously that Leipzig team that he managed with Rangnick as director of football as well. Like that team did wonders in the Champions League and in the league for their club. And then, gone to Bayern Munich. And realistically, his only punishment was the fact that Bayern, the board thought that Tuchel could actually win them the Champions League like he did at Chelsea. He only lost like Nagelsmann only lost like 3 games in the league. So it wasn't like he was in bad form or anything like that. And they might have had rumours of bust-ups here and there. But I don't know, man. It just felt like he had everything that we sort of needed. But again, look, he might have had specific demands. We don't know. It seemed to me that the club were trying to save face a little bit by trying to say that we've rejected him, even though it probably was realistically the other way around. And look, don't get me wrong, there are the other managers, like one of them that comes in might be the next Pochettino. We just don't remember back in when we appointed him that it didn't really seem like an inspired appointment, but he ended up being a world-class manager and an unbelievable one for us. So who's to say that anyone else on this list cannot do the same thing? But all I can really say right now from the little I know is that none of the others just really excite me as an appointment. I don't feel like there's many of them out there that are going to effectively bring the fans together and potentially get the best out of this team right now.
Especially at this point in time where everybody's kind of fed up and had enough. I think Nagelsmann was, like you said, the one that excited everyone. I mean, Emma, I don't know whether the board, like George said, saving face, but the fact that we still don't have a director of football kind of does put you off coming to Spurs, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I just think it's so difficult as well. And I think it's such you've got so much to weigh up because you've got, do you go for a big name who's won loads, or do you take a risk, or do you, I think there's loads of different options. And I mean, the list just gets longer really. And I think it's difficult. It's difficult because again, we look at managers like Jose and Conte and how much success they had and look what happened. So I think it's such a difficult one, but yeah, it doesn't. I also think, any manager that comes in, although I think, I do think we need to give a manager time, and it's about that project. They're not going to come in and win us a league next season. It's not going to happen. But it's also with how frustrated, understandably, like the fans are at the moment. You bring a manager in, and if he doesn't have a good start, it's not going to go down well. So I think, it's just all a bit of a mess at the moment. And I think, the director of football as well, it's sort of just like, where is the sort of, what is the thinking and where is it going? And because I feel like you always need to know that to bring in the right manager. But so I think, it's just a difficult one, but I'm very interested to see, what happens.
Indeed. I mean, one name that won't be coming back to Tottenham anytime soon is obviously Pochettino, George. And I'm not going to lie to you. I don't blame him for going there. It's just like many fans are saying, if he's going around wearing a Tottenham tracksuit to then going to go sign for Chelsea, it's a bit like, it's not going to sit very well.
Yeah, and look, it's one of those situations for me personally where at first I was obviously like, look, I don't think we should get Poch in right now, purely because I think we need to try something else, try a different direction. But at the end of the day, just please not Chelsea. Like there's 2 jobs you don't take. That's Chelsea and Arsenal. And look, like you said, I do not blame him at all. If obviously the rumors are true, if we have not spoken to him, and he's waited as long as he could, and then yet Chelsea have come in, they obviously got a massive project going on with a lot of money. That you just can't blame him for then taking that job. Like he's not going to stay unemployed forever, just waiting for the Spurs job. And I think it's more the fact that just astounded that we didn't even potentially interview him or speak to him about this possible return, especially with a lot of our other targets potentially going. Like you said, like no Nagelsmann, Company was one, but he signed a new deal at Burnley. Like the list is getting shorter and shorter, and you'd think he'd be the right man to sort of galvanize the club and sort of bring us together again. And it's sadly he's going to down the road, and it's just depression from now on. So
it really is. And I was kind of the same. I was like, I don't think we should get Poch right now. I don't think it's the right kind of time. But like you say, you don't want him to be going down to a London rival. But that being said, Emma, What's your kind of take on the whole Poch situation? Like many people, I don't think, well, I say many people, everybody's a bit in full hatred at the moment of Pochettino, but what's your kind of take if you're going to put your level head on?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was the same as you guys. Well, I wasn't like I don't want him at Tottenham, but I also think there would have been this sort of, don't get me wrong, I think from a fan's perspective, it would have been great, would have united us and bought sort of what we needed. But I think from a football perspective, I do think everyone would have assumed that, we'd be going back to peak Poch time. And if we didn't, it's almost like turn something that was so great in a bit sour. But I agree. I think that was my main thing. If he doesn't come back to us, that's okay. But just don't go to Arsenal or Chelsea. So yeah, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see the reception he gets as well, because I don't know how split. I don't know what you guys think about how split it will be, because in some ways I do think people might be a bit bitter and like, you've gone to one of our biggest rivals, but then in some ways it's Poch, so I don't know.
I think it is difficult because I've seen on the time, I know Twitter's probably not the best source of information at times, but I've seen fans that were smitten by Poch that loved him. So when that came out that he's potentially going to Chelsea, it was like that. It was a switch. I mean, George, have you seen that as well? Do you think the reception, like Emma said, is going to be a bit bitter, or do you think fans are still going to love him?
I think it's going to be quite literally a 50-50 split, because I'm on the side that like I'm not going to boo him or anything like that. I'm not like, just because I understand why he's taking the job, but in the same breath, I'm not exactly going to sing his name when we go there. Like now he's going to be at Chelsea. Yeah, you best believe he's the enemy when it comes to on the pitch stuff. But I don't think I could ever bring myself to boo him for it. It would be totally different if it was the case of it was a choice between Spurs and Chelsea, and he's chosen Chelsea over us. But I think it's the fact that it's basically the only job available for him. It's like, look, it's the only job that he's got. Go for it. Like, fair play to him. He's got to make a living at the end of the day.
Agreed. And I think the thing is as well, the fact that we didn't potentially approach him just shows to me that the board, well, Daniel Levy doesn't want to admit that he was wrong at sacking him. I think that's the biggest thing that's going on at the minute. And obviously, at the weekend, Emma, we do play Brentford, which is the last game of the season. And obviously, after Villa, I feel like the atmosphere is going to be incredibly toxic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a must-win game, really. And I think it's difficult because you think last home game of the season is meant to be great atmosphere, end on a high, but it's just so difficult. And I just feel like there's so much riding on the summer. Normally we have to just think about the transfer window and how many players are going to be rumoured and they're not come, but now we've got a whole manager search as well. And I mean, no game is easy at the moment, but I just think Brentford is not going to be an easy one. And I just think these last two games, I just think it's so important to win, to at least have that to take from this season, that we ended on a high.
Because at the moment we ain't ended on anything. And obviously, George, with Brentford, like Emma said, it's not going to be easy. And like I said, I don't know how I'm going to take, because obviously I'm going on Sunday. Like I said, because it's the last game of the season, you want to enjoy it, but I don't know if it's going to have that atmosphere, because obviously I think ENIC out movement is going to be happening. I don't know whether there's going to be rings around the stadium. And to be fair to you, I'm in the stance that if your voice is going to be heard, let it be heard.
Yeah, and look, they've been doing it the last few games anyway, no matter what, whether that's in the away or the home. And I mean, obviously, especially at home. I heard it for like the first minute or two they were singing, and obviously at the 22 minute mark. So I'm fully expecting that to happen again. And yeah, fair play. If you want to voice your opinion, you definitely should, because we're in a bit of a shambolic state right now. And it obviously needs changing at the top for it to get better, because it's just the same old again. But I think it also then depends on how the game goes. If we are getting thumped by Brentford, it's going to be incredibly toxic throughout the game. And I remember, was it a couple of years ago now, the last game of the season, we ended up losing, and again you just heard boos everywhere, people walking out, the all the chants. It can easily get very, very, very toxic in that game. But again, look, if we win, sort of leave on a high, potentially say goodbye to Harry Kane, although I hope not. You never know. It could be a good day, but yeah, we'll have to just wait and see.
Well, I think it will be interesting as well, actually, when they obviously do the lap of honour that they always do at the last game with. I wonder, what his what he'll do, if he'll give anything away. Because I think you see a lot of players, obviously this is more when they're definitely leaving, but they do sort of say their goodbyes, and I don't know, it'll be very interesting.
It will be. And obviously that day as well, we have a double header because the women are playing straight after against Reading. So in that respects, obviously I want it to be a little bit toxic in terms of voices being heard, but obviously you want to get behind the team as well, just because for the women playing in the stadium afterwards, you don't want it to leave a sour taste, because it'll be a big game against Reading. But obviously before we kind of wrap up, I want to talk about the fact that we aren't classed as bottlers anymore, because I thought, you know what, it's been depressing talking about Tottenham tonight. Let's talk about them not down the road, because George, Arsenal have fully bottled it, even if they don't want to admit it.
I've got a big one right here. I poured it from the other end because look, it's actually astounding. It's statistically the biggest bottle job I think the Premier League has ever seen, and it is. I'm finding it incredible on just social media. Just all of these Arsenal fans just trying to deny it, like the amount of crap they gave us for years after the 15-16 and like 16-17 seasons. Bearing in mind we never even took the lead once, and now all of a sudden they're crying about like, oh, but Man City are too good, they're going to get 94 points, no one can stop them. Look, the facts are the facts. You were 8 points clear. You were ahead. What was it? You had 2 games where you were 2-0 up and managed to draw them both, and then drew another one. You then obviously lost against Man City anyway, who you're fighting for, and not just lost. I thought they just got absolutely battered, and then now just been battered at home in Brighton. So it's clearly a case of, again, where this young Arsenal team, when it comes to crunch time, they just couldn't really handle the pressure, and it's 93% of the season at the top, just for it to end like that. What a shame. What a shame.
It really is a shame. And I know we can't really talk because we're pants at the moment. But Emma, it does make you feel a little bit better to think that, like George says, 93% of the season at the top to then fall off right when it matters.
And honestly, I was kind of like, our season was getting worse, and I was like, it would really just top it off if they were to win the league. I couldn't deal with that. But yeah, I just don't understand how any Arsenal fan can say they haven't bottled it, because you just can't be at the top for that. It doesn't matter who's below you. If you're good enough to win, then it doesn't matter who's below you. And I just think, you can't be at the top that long and then bottle it. But that's exactly what they've done. And, no complaints over here.
It is literally like a saving grace, though. Like I said, the fact that we're having a very awful season, and even in that season, they still couldn't win the league. And especially the fact, George, that other teams around them haven't been very good this season, apart from City, I would say, have been the only consistent ones.
Yeah, look, this was their chance. I feel like that was sort of, I guess, our chance as well in the 15-16 season, which unfortunately Leicester were the ones that took it more than we did, and that was just a period of all these top teams weren't performing well. But look, this year Liverpool way off the pace, obviously needing some new players. Chelsea completely off of it, but have signed a lot of players, a lot of young players, which with the right manager might be a good team again next year. And then like Man U seem to be strengthening. Man City now, like halfway through the season, Pep changed his tactics and just hounded them down. Newcastle on the way up, Brighton looking good. Look, there's going to be so much competition next year for that top 4 and the league. So I think their ship has sort of sailed to win it again, and they'll be fighting for top 4 again.
100%. Yeah, I think, like I said, we just need to try and regroup ourselves in the summer. I mean, before we go, I promise I'll let you go in a sec. But Emma, I know there's a lot of places in Tottenham that we need to fix. But what would you say is that one position that needs to have some major surgery on it?
Is this excluding the managerial position, I assume?
Yeah, we'll just exclude that one for a little bit.
I've been saying it. I don't know, because, I really think creative midfielder, I think, we've been saying it since Eriksen, and I do think that we're still missing that. And, I think, again, moving some players out, we need to replace them. But hopefully once Bentancur's back, that will sort of improve. So I'd probably say defence. I think, again, moving players, I think the likes of Dyer and Davis, who have been there for so long, it's moving them out, and it's now building that strong defence, but with those players who can actually help us excel, not just stay stagnant. So yeah, I'd probably say centre back.
I think that's a good shout. Like I said, I think we need to sort that out ASAP. I mean, George, how about you? What's your like number one position say? I know there's multiple.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree. Like that it is sort of that whole spine needs sorting out, like the goalkeeper, centre back, attacking mid. Like there is a lot to solve, but I think probably the most important is centre back. I think mainly because look, at the end of the day, we can, and we've seen it recently as well. You can score as many goals as you want. Like our front three over the last couple of years have scored, I think, like the second most goals compared to Man City. So clearly, scoring is not really an issue for us. It's the fact that we leak so many goals, and I feel like any top team out there, you need to have a solid centre back partnership. And I think, as well as that, having that other top centre back alongside Romero will bring a better player out of him. I think at the moment, he seems to be doing these more rash tackles because it's either making up for someone else's mistake. I remember in the Liverpool game, Dyer like pushed too far forward, he slipped, player got past, and that's when Romero, had to do a slide in last ditch tackle and gave the penalty away. And I think a lot of the times it can come out of more frustration that the rest of the players aren't doing a good enough job than anything, because you look in other games, looks class and he seems calm, he just gets more time on the ball. And I think we just need a lot more solid back line and just stop leaking in these goals. So that sort of goes hand in hand with the goalkeeper too.
Definitely. It's a bit like Crackers said a few weeks ago. He said we're Baywatch up top and Crime Watch at the back. I don't think you could have put it any better. But yeah, it's going to be a very long transfer window and a very long time trying to find a new manager. But hopefully against Brentford, we can salvage something, because I think we all need a bit of a pick-me-up coming towards the end of the season. But I want to say a big thank you to both of you joining me tonight. So we'll go around the table. So first of all, Emma, thank you so much again for jumping on tonight. Where can everybody find you?
No worries. It's been a pleasure to be back on. My Twitter's in my name there, Emma_Deduve. So yeah.
No, perfect. Thank you. And George, thank you again so much. Where can everybody find you as well?
No, it's a pleasure, and thanks for having me back on and discussing, and hopefully feeling better about Spurs after talking it. But yeah, you can, like, my name at the bottom here is just how you spell it on all my socials. YouTube has slowed down a bit this year, but life has been very, very busy. So hopefully back to making content very soon.
Nice, like it. And hopefully you can actually make content when Spurs are actually a little bit better.
Well, yeah, hopefully, yeah. We'll have to see about
that. So the stars might align. But no, thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you to everybody in the chat as well. Like I say, Hollie Hotspurs Live will be back next Monday with new guests. There's only like 2 more shows to go. So hopefully they're only not so much therapy sessions. We can actually talk about some more goals and some winning times. But like I say, like always, come on you Spurs.